We told the National Review, quote, "Many parents want to have the opportunity to discuss gender on their own terms because children are being pressured by peers to consider transitioning as the cure for all their ailments, including social awkwardness, puberty, and anxiety. We welcome this move by Disney, which is on trend with the push from other major corporations away from the DEI model that has failed them. The fact that Disney has made this move is monumental given the corporation's standing and brand recognition around the world. We are hopeful that this shift signals that the house of cards is finally falling around gender ideology." Unquote. Welcome to the LGB Alliance USA News Roundup for December 20th, 2024. We are here with Sylvia, Jose, Tim, and me, Ariane. First, a summary of the week's news. Celebrated Montreal-based gay conservative commentator Big Figget dies of an aneurysm. Senator Josh Hawley slams NCAA president over failure to safeguard women's sports. A Michigan mother faces a setback in court in her drive to obtain more information about her school district's ethnic and gender studies curriculum. Unsealed documents debunk a key argument made against whistleblower Eithan Haim. Preferred pronouns are enforced on the prosecution in the Tremaine Carroll Trial. And Disney Plus pulls a transgender-themed storyline for one of its series. First, we'll hand it to you, Tim, then to Jose.
Adam Burgoyne, a well-known Canadian gay activist and online personality, has died from an aneurysm at home after a 6-hour wait in a hospital emergency room. Burgoyne, who went by the name @big_figget on X, was a prominent voice in the gender-critical movement, challenging mainstream transgender ideologies and advocating for gay male identity. In his final post, Burgoyne shared an image of his hospital bracelet with the caption, quote, "6 hours and counting, this is Canada." The remark was a sharp critique of Canada's publicly funded healthcare system, known for long emergency room wait times. After being sent home without treatment, Burgoyne suffered the fatal aneurysm, turning his final words into a haunting reminder of the system's shortcomings. Reactions to his death have been deeply polarized. On his obituary page, hateful comments pouring in, mocking and celebrating his passing. One user wrote, quote, "Smoking that Adam Burgoyne's pack, R.I.P. bozo," unquote. While another posted, quote, "Sorry for your loss, but he added no value to the world being alive," end quote. A third commented, quote, "Another one down," and, quote, "The world is a better place without you." On X, posts followed a similar tone, with users labeling him a, quote, "transphobe" and reveling in his death. Yet those who knew him described a man who stood firm in his convictions, even when faced with hostility. Yeah, the fact that Adam Burgoyne was vilified is telling. The fact that he's still being vilified is telling. Not one of the people celebrating his death, mocking him and attacking him in the most hateful terms possible, would ever admit to being anything but pro-gay. They would all claim to support gay people, to stand on our side. Yet Adam could never have incurred such wrath if he weren't gay. In the fantasy where trans activists have retroactively co-opted the gay rights movement into a queer umbrella movement, gay men like Adam, who refuse to accept the hijack of their own movement, are somehow traitors. They're the worst enemies of the people who have twisted our movement to satisfy their own fleeting desires and deeper insecurities. And to a mainstream that's gone along with all this, such people are untouchables, even crazy. This is nothing new. The most effective gay rights activists, the ones who have made the world safe for gay people, have never been popular. They've been hated, condemned, and met with public opprobrium. Progress hasn't come through appeasement or fashionable gestures, but through the bravery of those willing to endure scorn, to speak the truth, and fight for what's right. Adam made sacrifices. He refused to let his balls be cut off. He refused to cede his voice to an ideology that demands conformity. His rejection of fashionable orthodoxy made him a target of ridicule and hatred, and that celebration of his death, along with his words and ideas that will long outlive him, is the proof we're left with of his contribution.
Thanks, Tim. During a December 17th Senate Judiciary Committee hearing on legalized sports gambling, Senator Josh Hawley confronted NCAA President Charlie Baker over the organization's policies regarding transgender athletes in women's sports. Hawley questioned Baker about the NCAA stance that allows trans-identified male athletes to compete on women's teams, including sharing locker rooms, showers, and toilet facilities based on gender identity. Baker's response was controversial. He insisted that athletes uncomfortable with these policies could use alternative facilities, putting the responsibility for safety on women themselves. He also emphasized that NCAA guidelines provide flexibility for sports institutions to accommodate athletes as they see fit. The hearing intensified when Senator John Kennedy asked Baker if biological males have a physical advantage over females in sports. Initially, Baker hesitated, calling the issue debatable, but later agreed with Kennedy that biological males do have an advantage when competing against women. When pressed on why the NCAA hasn't amended its policies to protect women's sports, Baker repeatedly cited federal court rulings in favor of transgender participation. One of these cases included a November 2024 ruling by a Colorado district judge, which allowed transgender volleyball player Blair Fleming to compete in the Mountain West tournament. However, as Icons, the independent counsel in women's sports, pointed out in their fact-checking of Baker's testimony, this ruling was procedural and didn't address the broader issue of transgender inclusion in women's sports. Icons emphasized that no federal court has mandated the NCAA allow transgender athletes to compete in women's sports or share women's locker rooms. They also noted that most court decisions have been related to high school cases, not NCAA policies. Icons supports ongoing lawsuits against the NCAA and Mountain West Conference, including one led by former NCAA swimmer Riley Gaines, accusing the NCAA of violating Title IX by allowing trans-identified males to compete in women's sports. As these legal battles continue, the debate over transgender inclusion in women's sports remains unresolved, with serious implications for fairness, safety, and Title IX protections. And with that, I'll hand it to you, Sylvia.
Thanks, Jose. In Michigan, the fight for transparency in public schools has faced a setback. Carol Beth Litkohi, a mother and newly elected Rochester school board member, sued her district for denying her access to curriculum materials for a history of ethnic and gender studies class. The district claimed it didn't have the requested records. A Michigan court ruled that teachers' materials aren't subject to a Freedom of Information Act, a decision the Supreme Court upheld. The state Supreme Court, I should say. Litkohi, labeled as hateful by critics, insists she's advocating for accountability. Despite obstacles, she continues her push for transparency, emphasizing that restricted access undermines public trust in education. Her story is one of many stories. For example, back in 2022, Elizabeth Clare, a mother with a child in the Rochester district, filed a Freedom of Information Act request, which was accepted, however, with the condition that she pay over $33 million. She filed the request to find more information about what the district was doing to stem retaliation against parents in the context of the COVID lockdowns. With such a steep price on the supposed free information, Claire begged the question, what are they hiding? Next, the DOJ was in possession of information that disproved the HIPAA violations from the start. For context, in May 2024, Dr. Eithan David Haim was charged for violating the HIPAA after he blew the whistle and leaked documents exposing that Texas Children's Hospital was still performing gender-affirming surgeries on minors even after the hospital claimed to have ceased the procedures. The original charge against Dr. Haim asserts he had stopped providing care to patients back in 2021 and therefore had no right to access patient electronic medical records at the time of the leak. In an unsealed document, however, it is shown that Dr. Haim provided care to patients through April 2023. Thus, the DOJ attempted to prove their point by using evidence that simultaneously disproved and destroyed their entire argument. Dr. Haim's lawyers went as far to say that the original indictment was founded on lies and in other situations would be actionable to slander. The court denied the request to dismiss the case brought forth by Dr. Haim's lawyers, and the DOJ maintained that Dr. Haim, quote, obtained personal information, including patient names, treatment codes, dates of service, and attending physician from Texas Children's Hospital's electronic system without authorization and under false pretenses. There appears to be some backpedaling on the part of the DOJ, who has since changed some of the language within the charges against Dr. Haim. In 6 months, the original wording of HIPAA protected has since been dropped entirely, and likewise, those allegedly harmed by Dr. Haim's actions have been changed from Texas Children's Hospital's physicians and patients to simply Texas Children's Hospital and its physicians. The trial is set to take place in mid-February 2025, and we will keep you updated on it. And now, Ariane.
Thank you, Sylvia. So first, I'm gonna do an update on the Tremaine Carroll trial, which we have reported on before. Carroll is the trans-identified male inmate who was convicted and imprisoned for rape in California and is currently being prosecuted for allegedly sexually assaulting people in a women's prison. Another preliminary hearing for this trial was held earlier this month. And according to Wolf, that is the Women's Liberation Front, Eric DuTemple, who's the criminal prosecutor in the case, may be compelled to refer to Carroll as a woman using female pronouns in court. Critics argue that this requirement could set a dangerous precedent for compelled speech, raising serious concerns about the erosion of free speech. Legal experts warn that forcing individuals to use language that contradicts their beliefs jeopardizes the principles of free speech. DuTemple's supporters argue that such mandates prioritize ideology over objective truth, complicating the pursuit of justice and potentially undermining public trust in the legal system. This case highlights a growing debate over the balance between respecting identity and preserving fundamental freedoms, and we will continue to keep you updated about the Tremaine Carroll trial, which is going to progress next year. And then our final story involves Disney. So Disney has announced it's pulling a transgender-themed story arc from Win or Lose, a streaming show that tells the story of a co-ed middle school softball team. Disney said to The Hollywood Reporter, quote, "When it comes to animated content for a younger audience, we recognize that many parents would prefer to discuss certain subjects with their children on their own terms and timeline," unquote. It is still keeping the character that was supposed to be part of the trans-related story arc, but they decided to edit out some lines related to gender identity. Now, it should be noted that a reporter for the National Review, Abigail Anthony, contacted LGB Alliance USA about our own thoughts on this story, and she published our comments in her article for the National Review called "Disney Removes Transgender Storyline from Upcoming Children's Show." We told the National Review, quote, "Many parents want to have the opportunity to discuss gender on their own terms because children are being pressured by peers to consider transitioning as the cure for all their ailments, including social awkwardness, puberty, and anxiety. In reality, time is what's needed for kids to accept their bodies and corresponding natal sex," unquote. We also noted that parents can push their children towards gender-related treatments, noting that, quote, having a trans-identified child can be viewed as trendy in some social circles, end quote. We also said, quote, we welcome this move by Disney, which is on trend with the push from other major corporations away from the DEI model that has failed them. The fact that Disney has made this move is monumental given the corporation's standing and brand recognition around the world. We are hopeful that this shift signals that the House of Cards is finally falling around gender ideology. Unquote. We are very grateful for Abigail Anthony and for the National Review for requesting and publishing our remarks. So, what do you all think of this, about both the Disney story, about the reporting that was done on it? What do you think about it?
I think Disney's response as to why they did it was really smart. Um, they didn't go as far to say we reject gender ideology, which obviously would have been a win, but they just were like, "Oh, it's up for parents to talk about this sort of thing." And I think they just, in truth, read the writing on the walls and saw if we do this, we're going to lose a lot of money, and money talks. So I think that it doesn't actually mean that they think parents should talk to their kids on their own timeline or whatever their statement was. I think it all has to do with them not wanting to lose money, and yeah.
I think that's a good point, that there's a huge money incentive, and I don't always trust I mean, ideologically, I'm assuming Disney is probably still largely on board gender ideology, but like you said, even they know that they have to appeal to an audience.
Yeah, I want to say I was thinking about the huge success that Inside Out 2 was for them in terms of money. And I was thinking about how the ideas, some of the ideas in this movie, the whole you have an internal world, and how the emotions are gendered, the little characters inside each person are gendered, and the whole division between mind and body. These are all very compatible with gender identity ideology. And yeah, maybe they're just waiting for a more profitable way to push these ideas. And right now, just yeah, talking about trans that explicitly, maybe it's not good business for now.
That's a really good and interesting point you said about how their last big success is kind of goes hand in hand with the ideology that separates body and mind. I'm also curious too that the win or lose is about a co-ed baseball team. Um, that's interesting to me, and I'm wondering, are they going to address some of the problems that come with having co-ed sports teams? I, for one, really loved having female-only sports to go to, uh, because of how a lot of the boys treated girls. They would assume that we were just worse athletes. They wouldn't throw me the ball. And obviously not all of the boys, some of them were fine. Um, that said, I also enjoyed, co-ed kickball, and enjoyed how the boys were seemed to be a lot more competitive, and that kind of gave me my fix for like rugged, like contact sports. So I'm interested, if Disney is going to kind of touch on any of that sort of topic. I don't know, or if that's too nuanced for Disney, and it's just going to be about winning or losing and still having fun, something basic like that.
Yeah, I have no idea um, how it's going to play out. They might be trying to avoid any sort of serious topic that could be too hot potato, given the controversy that already arose around the transgender storyline. So I wouldn't be surprised if they play it safe. Um, What do you think about the National Review contacting us and reporting?
Thrilled, absolutely thrilled about it. One, that they know that we exist and then want to know our opinion. Like, finally, thank you. Yes, we would love to tell you our opinion and just kind of break this narrative that all same-sex attracted people or the LGBTQ is like one community that all thinks the same, and we're all outraged that this movie is dropping a trans side plot. I am so happy that LGB Alliance is breaking that narrative and is showing, hey, we're actually on board and here's why. And I think it's a great opportunity to bridge communities of people that all agree that this gender stuff is a little nonsensical and radical, and that we all can agree about that, even if we disagree on other things or, aren't all gay or straight or bi or whatever. So I was happy about it.
Yeah, I was too, and I know you two you had some engagement with the media during the Scrimeti hearings protests at the Supreme Court earlier. So I wonder if maybe there's finally been some spark and at least some corners of the media are interested in talking and reporting accurately. I mean, it would be nice if we had more, left-wing journalists too that are willing to actually show, that the gay community is not a monolith. Um, that would be a real big thing, but um, I have to say some of the reporting from conservative media has actually been quite good too. So we're in a weird situation where conservative audiences might be getting a more nuanced view than liberal audiences. It was something that Glenna was talking about on X recently. Oh, this is a weird, told me that in like 2010 or even, I would have been like, what? The conservative media is doing a better job than the liberal media, but here we are.
Yeah, when I read that they reached out to us to comment on this, I immediately thought, did it have to do with our recent presence at the Scrimeti rally? Is there maybe like, did it finally like break through or get across that we don't all agree on this issue, that maybe you should talk to different gay people about what we think? So I did wonder how much of it was a result of our presence there.
It's nice to have them reach out because it feels like they're pulling up a chair to the table and saying, like, come sit with us and break bread, which is really nice because it feels like we've been utterly rejected from all liberal media. And I personally would love it if there wasn't liberal media, conservative media. It was just media that stated facts. Like that would, that's my pie in the sky dream to have. But um it's very refreshing, and I hope that it helps us continue spreading our messaging.
So we'll include the link to the National Review article for you all to read. And of course, we'll also have links to more information on all of the stories that we covered for this week. So thank you everyone for joining us. We hope to see you again next year. We're actually going to be taking the next 2 weeks off for the holidays. So be sure to enjoy your Christmas, your Hanukkah, your winter solstice, and your New Year's. Goodbye, everyone.